I thought I'd show you the whole kind of block in here with yellow ochre. It's just yellow ochre and terps, but I'm just trying to get organized where the things are. You can see how sort of square I'm sort of making everything. I'm just trying to figure out relative to everything where the things are sitting. And yellow ochre and terps is good because if you need to, and you wipe it off, it pretty much disappears entirely. And if it pops through in the painting, it doesn't really interfere very much in terms of color. But I'm just trying to figure out where everything is. And if you were seeing in the other video, I really learned some things from the drawing process, drawing it first, of all these things right here, where this thing sits, where I want them to be sitting relative one to another. There's a hedge that, when I get to it, I'll show you. These things I've sort of pushed up so that they're close. So I'm bringing quite a long way down. You can see I'm just sort of feeling my way around here. Making sure it's all going to fit. And so with that, I know the placement of pretty much everything. And so I can lay in some pretty thick paint here. Like this one I want lower. And so I'm going to draw it lower because I want it to notch, you can see, back to where that far hedge is. And I'm just mixed up. Now, once I start painting, I don't use a medium. I just use paint and no terps, other than to clean the brush. Use bristle, filbert hog's hair bristles, number 6, number 8. And I don't pre-mix any colors either. You see, I just sort of check a color like that, and if it seems right, I'll put it in. And if it doesn't seem right, I'll check it again until I get one that I figure I can use. I wouldn't know how to pre-mix all the colors in advance. See, I just said put it in. Oh yeah, okay, that relationship will work. And then, part of that is experience, but I can certainly put in colors that aren't going to work and then have to just adjust them. Not sure quite what that line was, but anyway. So I am cutting the video here. The entire video was an hour long, 58 minutes or something. So the painting took about an hour. To block in fully. Then I make some adjustments, and I'll talk about that later. But I have the photograph. It's on the screen here, but the photograph is on my computer screen just over my left shoulder. You can see me looking over at it. I think you're hearing our fountain in the background. I had the door to the studio. And so I'm tending to paint from the back forward because you see that mark I just made up into the sky. I can leave that now. I might decide that I won't for whatever reason, but that mark pulled into the sky, wet paint into wet paint, can be left there. But if I try to put the sky in behind it, it's not going to work. So you see I've got a lit side to all those background trees now as well. You see there's a warm green, quite dull up there. And then now I'm coming forward with and then you can see that line of that hedge there is quite warm. It's sort of a warm. And then there's this different hedge, much darker underneath and greener on top, that as I drew it, I really said, whoa, that is very different than the hedge that's running across. So sometimes when you draw something in advance, you start to realize where these different shapes are in space and what some of the changes are that you need to make. Because one of the most important things is that you're seeing where each object is in space and making sure the viewer knows where it sits. Because, if you're not careful, you can do things that confuse the viewer and then they just don't know what's going on. So in each case, I want the viewer to know, okay, this object is here, this object is here, this one is over here. So there's no ambiguity in terms of the space of where things sit in space as they go back. So this paint is pretty thin. Some of the other paint there, I've got quite a lot of paint on my brush, but that paint in there is pretty thin because I've got 2 or 3 layers of things, darks and lights, that still need to go into it. I've got the yellow mustard to go into this too. So again, I don't want that paint to be too thick. You can see I'm scrubbing it in pretty thin. But you see here, I'm going in darker, so I don't want the paint so thick that I can't get the marks to work. And then I start putting in that mustard. It looks quite cool, the color of the mustard compared to the photograph. And my photograph, it looks sort of cool too. It doesn't look this cool in the actual painting. It's sort of warmer. But you see, this paint's pretty thick, right? I'm just smearing that in. Now I'm going to have to start transitioning it down into the sort of color about halfway between the two to start pulling them both together. And the tendency when you look at this thing is, I'm just going to get a little brush and I go dab, 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 dab all through the foreground and I'll make this beautiful thing. And before you know it, it actually sort of looks ridiculous. So it's kind of, you need to still be putting in the big shapes and then just have a few of the individual mustard flowers that say, I see, these few are representing lots of them. So you still see, I'm still thinking masses here of things. You're getting a little smaller. And there's that hit of color right at the back where I want you to go. There, and then there. And there. But here you see, I'm not putting that many of these in, like dab, 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 dab. I'm putting in just a few, particularly on the edges of shapes, to say, I see, there's lots of them, but these are just the few that are going to indicate the whole mass of it. And then I'm pushing the darks, forming the shapes. And you can see that it sort of gets lighter and a transition color there between them now because of that. So then there's a few sky holes, or actually they're not sky holes, they're the far distant tree holes in there. And then from that point on, I was making adjustments here and there, pulling things together. But there's the finished painting.